a combination of movies or something like that.
Right. Or what was your pause one that you did?
Oh, I did a Paw Patrol.
Paw Patrol. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, we're live on YouTube. Hello, YouTube/internet. Still pre-show. Everybody can record a local. That'd be awesome. We haven't really been collecting them, but we record them in case something does go wrong. So let's get that started, and I'll put out a tweet and a message to our channel. If you are on YouTube and you just happen to hit this and you're wondering, why can I not chat? You can chat. We encourage chatting in our changelog community Slack, which is totally free. It's just a place where we hang out, which is not YouTube. So head over to changelog.com/community and sign up. It's free, and then just get your Slack invite, hop into the JS Party channel. I realize that's a lot of work for you, so you probably won't do it, but all good. We've got people hanging out in there. And maybe you can do it now and hang out next week. So I just messaged our channel.
We do, in fact, answer questions sometimes that are posed in the
do.
channel, or quote people, or highlight how amazing folks are. Give away T-shirts, all sorts of things.
That's right. All sorts of things. Well, you're a good salesman, KBall. You need
know
you
it.
around more often. You're selling it better than
I'll do
I
my
am.
best. Now that my
Hello,
kids are back
everybody.
in actual school, it should be easier to move things around.
When's this? When they're
They're now back in actual school, which means that I have a lot more flexibility during the mornings. Still have to deal with
nice.
meetings, but
Sure. Well, we have lots of cool episodes lined up that you can hop in on. I'm not sure if you've been watching some of the chatter, but holy cow, lots of guests lined up.
Yeah, I gotta update my availability, but they look cool. It looks really
Wait,
cool.
who's coming up?
So we've got Mateo Kalina coming up to talk Fastify. Natter Dabbit is coming on to talk, I think, like Ethereum, decentralized web things, Web3. We've got Rich Harris lined up soon. A few other ones which I haven't confirmed dates, so I don't want to name them in case things fall apart. But that's just a couple off the old noggin.
That's a good list.
Yeah. We also have, we're still pre-show, so I'll say on the show, if we get to I'm excited about X, is we have our episode 200 coming up soon. This is 195, so don't have any plans for 200, but we are soliciting plans. We would like to do something abnormal. Hopefully good also, but definitely abnormal is the goal there. Something we don't normally do for 200, so if you all have ideas, share them.
What did you do
for 100? What did we do? We did a bunch of lightning chats, right?
Yeah, for 100.
Back when we actually went to conferences.
JS next week. Nick is reminding me in the chat that the Nest JS folks are going to come on next week to talk Nest, GraphQL. There's some TypeScript in there, I'm sure. I'm looking up episode 100 right now. Was this live at
the lightning chats from live at All Things Open?
Yes, 11 awesome lightning chats from All Things Open 2019, 2 years ago. And I was live on stage with you, me, and Emma, right, Nick? Or KBall?
That sounds right. Yeah. Well, and was Amel there? Oh, Amel wasn't a panelist yet. We just interviewed her.
But we met, or had I met Amel before? I met Amel on the run-up to All Things Open, and then met her, face to face there. And she's on that show as a guest, but not as a panelist.
How long ago was that?
That was published November 1st, 2019. Recorded October 15, 2019. So darn near exactly 2 years. 1 month shy of 2 years ago.
That makes sense. 100 episodes.
Yeah. 50 a year, roughly. Yeah, it does make sense. All right, so Thomas says we should invite back every guest you've ever had on to do We Are the World. Is that like where everybody sings it together? That's an idea. See, that's abnormal. I like what you're thinking, Thomas. Nick says 200 okay. That's just a status code. That's not really an episode idea, but I appreciate the pun.
An entire episode in rhyme, rap battle style.
Every sentence must rhyme. Where will we find the time?
I might have to miss this one.
Yeah, that didn't rhyme, Amelia. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. Kick me out. It's fine.
or question tennis version. I'm just blowing off random.
Amel had a cool idea for a new game called like 2 Lies and a Truth or something. Which is this a game people play?
2 truths and a lie.
Oh,
was
2
a
truths and a
thing,
lie.
But, Amel might want to lie more often.
That's true. She might invert it for fun. So there's an idea. I'm not really sure what that would look like, but. And of course, Go Time, those jerks, they're reaching 200 next week. So they've already started the 200 OK jokes, and I'm like, come on, save it for Chase Party. It's a web dev show. Like that's not even Go's not even. Anyways, still trying to spark a rival between the two podcasts because how fun would that be to have like street gangs rivaling podcasts on the same network?
Isn't the Street Gang thing why you had that curated front end feud the other day?
Yes, and I will say unconfirmed, but coming probably, since we're still not officially live on the air or on YouTube, is front end feud Ladybug podcast versus front end happy hour. Don't tell anybody because
Nice.
it's not official yet. But I think if we take that game and we take the winner of that to play against Shop Talk, we could actually have like a bracket and crown a championship.
I think that's brilliant. Let's do it.
All right.
Is there a prize though?
JS Party t-shirts.
A Go Time t-shirt. Everybody already has JS Party t-shirts because like every guest gets one for free. Every panelist.
It's like my
has
favorite
t-shirts.
t-shirt. It's a really nice shirt.
Aren't they nice? They're so
Yeah.
comfortable.
What why are they so nice?
Because we spare no expense when it comes to treating people around here and ourselves. Like except for
I
this.
think I
was a-
have 6 of them, and I wear them very regularly.
Nice. We want to do more with merch. We want to like launch the merch store and have like more there and new shirts and like limited run stuff. Anyways, these are all things that aren't actually happening. Let's start the show, shall we? Hello, world. It's your internet friend, Jerod Santo, and I am excited for JS Party today. I have 3 of our regular panelists here with me. Amelia, how are you?
I'm good. Thanks for asking.
You're welcome. Thanks for being good. If you would have said I'm bad, then I would have felt awkward.
You're
I'm
welcome.
glad you're good, or I'm at least willing to lie about it. KBall, what's up, man?
I'm bad.
Bad to the
You,
bone.
you just set me up for that. No, I'm happy to be back on. Excited to be here.
Well, that's how it works around here. I set them up and you knock them down, KBall. We also have Bone Skull, who is a fan of knocking things down. What's up, Chris?
What's up? Here I am.
See? He's already knocking things down, and we're just getting started. So we have a couple of awesome recurring segments for everyone today, and we're going to start off with Story of the Week.
It's time to take a peek. It's time for the story of the week.
Man, we got to get him back on here.
Be careful, if you say his name 3 times, he shows up.
I saw that earlier. Matt Ryer.
Oh no! So, Story of the Week is one of our recurring segments where we just take turns sharing what we believe is the most important or the biggest story of the week or recently, or maybe just the one that we found before the show started. So, take it for what you will. Some of these are newsy, some of these are just cool things that we think are interesting. Here we go. So, let's start off with KBall. What's your story of the week?
Yeah, so the story I picked out is not JavaScript specific, but it was a study that came out recently looking at the impact of the dramatic shift to remote work, looking at like a whole bunch of Microsoft employees that apparently gave access to like all sorts of tracking info about how they work and who they meet with and all these other things. And so these researchers dug into it and found a couple interesting things about the impact. And how generalizable this is to remote work globally is an interesting question, right? Because we all have seen. Like working in a pandemic is not the same as just working remotely. But one of the things that stood out to me is how communication across different parts of the company changed. And what they said is they found that the networks kind of ossified and shrunk. So people communicated as much or more with the people they were really, really close to, but those kind of weak connections across different parts of the organization went away. And there was a lot less communication across kind of outside of your immediate team or beyond that, your department. And it got me thinking a lot about, remote work practices. I'm somebody who worked remotely long before the pandemic. Like, I spend a ridiculous amount of time just scheduling random meetings with people. And it's, having seen this, I'm like, oh, that's why. Because when you're remote, you don't get those casual connections. You have to be extremely deliberate about it. But I thought it was interesting. I thought it was worth considering for both as individuals, like how do we make sure that if we're still working remotely, we're maintaining those connections, but then also for folks who are running teams to say, okay, check in with your team. Are they still connecting to people outside their team? Like, how do we make sure that we maintain those diverse connections? Because that's where, for me, that's where the fun stuff is, right? Like, I know what my team's working on. It's neat to learn about what other teams are working on. And often those conversations generate new ideas and breakthroughs.
Yeah, absolutely. Amelia, you've joined GitHub, and you probably have never been. Did you go to the HQ? I'm guessing you've been remote only since you joined.
I actually had a full job during the pandemic before GitHub where I met one of my coworkers really briefly, but I basically still haven't met any of them. And it's strange. And I definitely get the, my team's really small. We're 4 people, and we hang out with each other a lot, and we hang out with other people very much not a lot. So it's also interesting, in a physical office, there's proximity between teams. There's other teams who you sit near. So I wonder what the remote proximity is like. Is there anyone who's closer than anyone else, digitally? Probably not.
You need a study. You need to perform a study to find the answers to these things.
It's too much work.
Yeah, we're not going to study. We're writing code. Chris, what about you? Were you remote the entire time, or you went remote? I can't recall.
No, I've been remote for like a decade now.
Yeah.
I don't really
same.
remember what it's like to work in an office.
So one thing I read, which ties into what you found, KBall, is interesting about the culture changes in and around Apple because of their adoption of Slack, company-wide Slack. I think there's a Verge article, which maybe I can find and link up, how that, and I'm not sure if the move to Slack coincided with the remote or came before that. Whatever it is, still you're using mostly these chat and digital tools to communicate company-wide, and how that changed dramatically, I think, the relationships cross-functionally or even vertically inside the company, because now you have direct access to folks that you otherwise would have had to go upstairs and talk to if you're at HQ. There's lots of things that changed, and changed quite dramatically because so many people went remote in dramatic fashion, thinking it was temporary, and now kind of having pushback by employees saying, no, this is better. So we can find that one as well. But I think things are changing inside organizations due to this. Some for the better and some for the worse.
Apple's a really interesting example too, because they are historically so incredibly private and siloed.
Yeah. Not so much anymore. In fact, I just saw today that Tim Cook made some sort of statement that people who leak are not Apple people, and that information came from a leak out of Apple. It was a private thing that leaked. So the irony there is quite thick. Well, let's get to some other stories. Definitely the remote work thing is an ongoing and very important story and aspect of our lives. Amelia, yours are a little bit more technical and nitty-gritty. You want to share your story of the week?
Yeah, I couldn't think of anything that happened recently, so I just picked 2 things I thought were cool. The first one I can go through really quickly. The first one is a little bit newsy, but it's CSS container query units are in Chrome Canary. super exciting. This is like, so you know how you can have viewport units like viewport width, viewport height in CSS? You can say something's 10% of the width. Well, now in only Chrome Canary, you can base it on its container. So you can say, you know, I want this image to be 10% of the width, but you can also do more complicated things like stack things differently. I haven't totally read into it yet, but it's very exciting. I'm excited to read about it. I'm excited to use it sometime in the future. And then the other thing that's not newsy that I think is really cool is Harry Roberts. He did some talk that you can't listen to, but you can see the slides, and he released this CSS snippet where it basically turns all of the links and scripts and things in the head of your document into like visible things. Like basically they exist. They're just like not visible. So there's, with a little bit of CSS, you can make these things visible. And if you use it on any web page, you can see like things that are maybe not as performant as you want them to be. Like it'll highlight if your title is blocked by some blocking JavaScript that has to execute before, you know, like crawlers might get the title, and like there's green, orange, and red blocks. And I don't know, I think it's super cool that you can just use a little bit of CSS and get this kind of performance report.
That is cool. So he provides a bookmarklet. Drag and drop the following link in your bookmark bar. And so you can do that on any website, right? You just click that and it's going to do it. It's going to show you that. Ah, that's spectacular. This is very cool. And he gets an award for the pun of the day because it's called Check Your Head. Get it? Check your head.
Yeah, he's got a ton of puns in his slides. If you like puns, you should go through the slides. I don't remember them, though.
I like the Beastie Boys.
There you go. If you like puns or if you like the Beastie Boys, this is a article for you. Spectacular. Well, since yours aren't exactly news, I think it's fit to share mine because mine's not newsy at all. In fact, mine is an article that wasn't even posted recently. It was posted in July.
Hey, that's recent, isn't it?
It's only two.
Actually, that's going to be a part of this
3 months
conversation.
ago.
So very poetically. So months later, I'm reading this, and it's by Rach Smith. And her article says, I completely ignored the front-end development scene for 6 months. It was fine. And it's not it was fine with the dog and the fire who's saying everyth's fine. This is like actually okay. So if you don't know who Rach Smith is, she is a longtime developer. She works at CodePen and has been publishing on the web for many years. So I've read her stuff over the years. In fact, she says in this post, she first started coding professionally. It was with Adobe Flash. Then Steve Jobs decided to kill Flash, and it forced her to learn how to animate things with JavaScript, CSS3, and HTML Canvas. She goes on to talk about a long progression in her career in which things moved fast and she was always trying to keep up. And then, 9 years passed. She took 6 months off. And as many of us do, we think if we're taking 6 months off from the front-end scene or from the web scene in general, that you're going to be light years behind when you come back. But she found that not to be the case. And so she says what she learned through this experience is that the number of languages she's learned or the specific framework she's gained experience with matters very little. What actually matters is her ability to upskill quickly and effectively. And so I appreciate Rach for sharing this because it's something that I think is a nice reminder that, things do move fast and the list of technologies on any given job post are changing all the time. And many times they'll want you to have 10 years experience in a thing that's been out for 8 years or such monstrosities as that. But our fear of missing out, our fear of falling behind isn't not real, but isn't always well placed. The technologies change and shift, but the foundations, the fundamentals and the skills that you're building transcend those technologies. So you're going to be just fine. You're going to be okay. And I thought that was a good story for this week, even though it was a story for a week in July. What do you think, KBall?
Well, I was reflecting. So I spent 2.5, 3 years publishing a weekly front-end development newsletter, and I stopped doing that a few months ago. And one, I want to say that I'm so much happier not keeping up on what's happening every week. Like it's so stressful to feel like there's this constant churn and you've got to constantly keep up and do this and do that. So, I'm personally happier not trying to keep up with everything all the time. I like to catch up every now and then, but if something's big, it'll get to me eventually. I don't have to keep pulling. But the other thing that I learned from doing that is, even though there's this sense of constant churn, and I could find tons of articles every week and all the time, like the amount of actually new content is pretty low. A lot of times I'd be linking something, I'm like, oh, this is another take on that thing. Yeah, that's pretty well done. Maybe this one will work for you. But after doing that for 3 years of like, okay, I'm just seeing all the content that's coming through in this space, like actual legitimate new interesting changes, they're not as frequent as they feel like. It's just we've got this like industry of churn and this feeling of I got to keep publishing and I got to keep reading and I got to keep doing all these things to keep up. And at the core, it's like, no, there is change, but it's built on the same fundamentals.
Where do you think this sort of fear comes from? I see a lot of, I think more, I don't know, junior developers lamenting on Twitter that it's hard to keep up, or they're on Reddit and they're complaining about it. And so, I mean, is it just like you want to keep up to maximize your career potential, or is it something else? Like, what's the root of that fear, not keeping up with JavaScript?
Yeah, I think it's fear of irrelevancy. I used to say that tongue in cheek that my greatest virtue as a software developer is fear of irrelevancy, because that means I'm always abreast of what's new and shaken. And I said that kind of tongue in cheek because it's true, but it's overstated. One thing that, and as a person who has been in the news for many years, I mean, I'm always logging with changelog news what's fresh and new in open source. It's kind of like what we do at changelog. So I see a lot of things come and go. And I will say that in the last, let's just call it 10 years, the pace of releases and the announcements and the blog posts have multiplied exponentially at the merger of, let's just say, capitalism and open source. Like when everybody jumped on open source as a way of getting ahead for whatever your goals are, way more things came out. And so, I mean, I remember when Rails took over back in 2004, it was like the big announcement of the year. I mean, there's other projects, but it wasn't like now where there'll be 5, 6, 7 like incredibly awesome new things that actually launch on a weekly basis that you're like, this is a whole world that is really interesting and is powerful and it's legit. And there it is. And you see that across your feed. So I think social media to a certain degree drives that. The FOMO, the feeling that other people are shipping things and you aren't. And then other people that you respect are also liking those things that are being shipped. And maybe you should jump on that ship. I don't know. There's a lot of just hype. And it's gotten louder and louder and louder. And so disconnecting is kind of a nice way to appease those fears. But that's what I'm seeing. Amelia, what do you think about why people have this fear of not catching the next wave or whatever it is?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And I'm talking through this. I don't actually believe this, but I think there's a lot of ground to cover. Like more and more things are possible on the web, and there's more and more types of applications and, you know, corporate websites and marketing websites, and they have to do all these things. Like, you can't just publish a website that doesn't have any CSS on it, even though that's a perfectly functional website. So I wonder if joining the industry, there's just so much to learn, and people don't specialize at all, right? Like, when you're just learning, you're not like, oh, I'm gonna be a developer for marketing websites. You're like, I have to learn everything. And then it takes, you know, years, 5 years to get your feet down and actually figure out, like, oh, okay, like, I don't need to know everything. I can only pay attention to things in my own niche, and figuring out where your niche is. And so I wonder if, like, I think really experienced developers probably have all gone through a period where they're really stressed out, and then have hopefully found some sanity and found their own niche where they and not to other things. And I wonder if that's just learning what's important. And we don't have any tracks, but hopefully in the future we'll have, you know, I want to be this kind of developer. But I don't know, maybe not.
I also wonder how much of this is that, like, getting your first job in tech is hard.
Yeah.
Getting your second, your third, your fourth, not so hard, right? Like, once you're kind of in and you have a little bit more of a track record, it becomes a lot easier to find those jobs. And some of that is problems in our hiring practices and the fact that companies don't want to hire entry-level folks because they've got to invest in them. And some of it is we've got a glut of folks coming in from boot camps, and so there's just a way larger number of entry level. But, you know, getting that first job is hard. And so people are kind of looking at these job rec lists, and they're like, oh, this one wants these 5 things. Well, maybe if I learn those things, I'll have an opportunity there. And, oh, this one over here, this wants these other 5 things. And they're trying to, like, bridge across all the different things so they can apply to all the different jobs to get their first job, because it's hard. And they're getting a lot of rejections along the way. And I mean, this is pure speculation, because it's been a long time since I was in that boat. I won't date myself on that, but you know, it's, I have this feeling like the way that we hire junior folks is contributing to the FOMO, right? That those of us who are more senior, or who are helping make hiring decisions or things like that, like, there are things that we can do that would reduce some of that FOMO.
I think so. I think focusing in on individual technologies is one of the things. I was just also, I guess, thinking about the fact that this blog post comes from a very experienced developer. And so it's kind of a mature thought. And why is that? And I think it's because when you just get started, maybe you only know one thing, right? Like, if you just, like, I learned React, sort of, and I can do stuff with it. Something else coming and replacing React is, like, existential at that point, right? I mean, maybe that's where it comes from. I mean, if all I knew was Ruby on Rails, and all of a sudden Django was all anybody was hiring for, I need to learn something else or get a different career. And so I think maybe over time, as you realize, you can kind of collect to yourselves these different technologies. But as I said earlier, and as Rach says in that post, the underlying foundational understanding of software is what really transcends and matters. Then you can kind of chill out and relax. But when you don't know any better, you don't know any better. And when the jobs are so focused on these hiring practice that target these specific things, then something replacing that is legitimately scary with regards to career, at least. Lots of thoughts there. A couple of good things coming out in the chat. One thing that Matt said, which I thought was good, is it's a good idea to wait to see what sticks too. So the other thing you see over time is how many things come and go, and jumping onto something too early that's going to fail is end up being a waste of time as well. So yeah, not following so closely, or at least not investing too much in brand new things, and waiting to see how it shakes out before you decide, yeah, that's something not worth investing my time in. Sorry, Chris, I cut you off. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's these job postings. They'll list all these technologies, like, you know, React or AWS, whatever they want you to do. Review. And the interview is like whiteboard questions. It has nothing to do with
Right.
any of that stuff. And so maybe you weren't really prepared for it. Maybe you're not good at that stuff, you know. But it's like, okay, I went out and I learned React so I could get jobs like this. But now I can't get jobs like this because I got to go back and do leak code.
Hmm.
And I don't know. I don't know. It's busted.
It's busted. Well, let's turn briefly to something that is still kind of busted, but gets better every single time a new release comes out. Chris, you want to talk about iOS 15, right?
Well, yeah. So I've been heads down on a thing that I've been working on for the past couple weeks, and I saw there was some sort of announcement about iOS 15, but I'm completely no idea what's in it. I have no idea what that means, especially for the mobile web and Safari on iOS. Can anybody help me, please?
Well, I heard that it does some bizarre design change to where the address bar is. Like moves it to the bottom instead of the top, which
Yes.
is just like messing with my brain here.
Yes. So I actually like it on the bottom. So I did not run the betas, but I know there was a lot of discussion around the betas because it moved a lot throughout. There's a very dramatic redesign which has been changed throughout the betas and finally settled. It still is at the bottom. You can put it back at the top. This is the tab, the address bar and the tabs. So the nice thing about it on the bottom is that it's easy to get with your thumb and just a swipe and stuff. So there are some virtues to having it there. There are other aspects of the browser which the UI also has thrown people for a loop. But in terms of web development, I guess I'm not sure how relevant that topic is for us web devs. I think in web developer world, the main thing is that, it's still one rendering engine to rule them all, and Apple has not released their grip on WebKit only based browsers in iOS 15. Like that would be an amazing, I think, change and boon for web developers is to allow the Chromes and the Firefoxes and the Edges and the mobile Brave browsers to bring their own rendering engine. That didn't change. In fact, JS Party panelist Faraz has taken to Twitter and started posting these very interesting and fun browser ban tweets with some memes he's created to try to convince Apple to release their grip on the browsers inside of iOS. But that has not changed. That would be huge. There are a few things that are new. I think the biggest one is probably the web extensions. So Apple brought web extensions to Safari and Mac OS last year, and now they're bringing it to iOS so people can write extensions for Safari with web technologies, and they will run inside of Safari to do various things. That's pretty cool.
So you can run any sort of extension on mobile Safari?
Yes, you can run
like
extensions on
uBlock
mobile
Origin?
Safari. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Well, that was already available. Like content blockers were already approved prior to
Wow.
this, but this opens it up even more so. One example of that I've been running is Apollo, which is a popular Reddit app, which is better than Reddit's Reddit app, has built in an extension. So now that inside of Safari, if you click a Reddit link, you can set it up to automatically open in Apollo versus going to Safari's mobile view that wants to launch the Reddit app. If you don't use the Reddit app, it won't, blah, blah, blah. So that's like just one example. Another one that's cool is there is a macOS extension called Apple Keyword Search or Safari Keyword Search, which allows you to like throw in shortcuts into the search bar and like automatically search Amazon, automatically search IMDb, whatever you can imagine. And that was only on macOS Safari for a while, and now since iOS 15, you can now get that on mobile Safari, which is great because on mobile, you're already trying to type less letters to get to searches. So that's extending the built-in search inside the address bar in mobile Safari. So those are a few examples of what people are doing with them.
I want to go back to that address bar move again because so do you know do they expose that via a media query or something? Because I know a lot of folks will write like mobile web apps and they'll try to do the style of like the bottom nav bar that mirrors like the iOS thing or things like that. And I feel like that gets kind of weird if you've shifted around where the address bar and things are. So is that exposed to developers to be able to tell?
That I don't know, but I feel like those UIs fell by the wayside when Apple kind of did their big redesign back in like iOS 5 or something. Like I haven't seen those like tabbed browse. Like that was like a thing that people did with mobile jQuery or jQuery mobile, but I'm not sure people are really doing like lower tabbed base navigation in their web apps like they used to, unless they're maybe a little bit older. But I don't know if you can actually detect it or not. To me, I just think it's the viewport starts above wherever that is, and that's just kind of how it works. Maybe you can. There's also some other small improvements, things that were in beta, like web features. But apparently the link that I put into our show notes is dead now, so I can't click on it and read those. So let's forget about it. I'll put that in the show notes if people are interested in certain small things like new CSS features, new JavaScript features, can read through those. One thing that Nick Nisi pointed out, which I thought was pretty cool, this isn't really a Safari thing as much as it is just M1 or M and A based computing, Apple's CPU cores, is that the new iPad mini is actually the fastest single core performance for JavaScript in any computer at any price in the $499 range. It's like blows everything else out of the water.
Wait. At any computer, any price in the $499 range?
All right. I'll just read
which one
that
is
off
it?
the text. Let me say this.
60% of the time, 100% of.
That's right. Reminds me of a funny thing I saw yesterday from a coach who's like, I need you to give me 60%, 1000% of the time. And I was just like, come on. Yeah, can that happen? This is according to a tweet. No, I'm just falling apart. This is according to a tweet by DHH, who says it has the fastest single core performance for JS in any computer at any price is the $499 iPad mini. Okay. He says it is $499, but it's the fastest single core performance for any computer at any price. So it beats out the iPhone, it beats out the MacBook M1, it beats out the iPad Pro. It couldn't possibly beat out the iMac Pro, does it? It beats out the iMac Pro, so it's faster than everything. I think that's the point. At $500.
And this is from DHH, so unless we have another source, we can assume it's marketing, trying to be provocative just to advertise something.
What he says.
Well, he's got a table here, so I think he did the math. It's Spider Monkey tests. So.
Okay. I would love to see the underlying. I mean, honestly, it's probably right. He's often pushing an agenda.
Fair enough. If he's wrong, he's wrong. But we'll put the tweet and everybody can follow. And maybe there's a conversation underneath the thing that says, "Hey, man, stop pushing your." Wait, you don't work for Apple. What would he be selling here? I'm not following.
No, I don't know. I just instinctively
don't trust.
I've seen enough of his stuff where there's an agenda behind it that now I instinctively look for it. But you're right. There's no motivation here. So who knows where the data is coming from, but
all right, so that has been
Speedometer 2.0.
What's that?
He says Speedometer 2.0 browser bench. But
yeah.
Who's recording the data? I guess maybe he is.
Speedometer. He's working for big Speedometer. Let's call this the end of the segment, and we'll be right back with Explain It Like I'm 5. All right. Dropped a marker. We're in a break now. Everybody can sit back and relax and follow up on this tweet thread and see if there's any shady stuff going on.
Yeah, I don't trust him either.
We should have like a list of people who should not be named on JS Party. And he should be one of them. The other one should be Uncle Bob. And it got any others?
Who's Uncle Bob? I'm sorry. I didn't respect the rules there.
Let's see.
There's a
Show
whole
off my
article that is, I Googled for this to see if I could dig into it. And there's an article saying, oh, yes, this thing happened. And then their source is DHH tweeted it.
I feel like Apple always has these, like, in quotes, benchmarks. And you're like, you don't even have units here.
I mean, the M1 is bloody fast. I'm willing to, like, there's other evidence that shows this is plausible, but it would be great if there was, like, some sort of, I don't know, trusted source.
Speedometer 2.0. I don't know what that is. That's all I'm finding this. He turns off replies now, so there can't be anybody.
Looks like it's just like a browser, like you can run it and it like tries to run against whatever browser you're on. So maybe he just bought those and ran it.
I don't know.
But if they're just announced, I don't know how he'd get that. So maybe not.
The iPad Mini is out, isn't it? Maybe not. I think the reviews are coming out. Anyways, let's see. He says consistently across a 3-try average. So maybe it's like he actually did this research himself. I don't know. It's not, yeah, I'm not finding anywhere where else this would be posted. Still, dude, that's blazing fast. Even if it's like not the fastest. It's crazy. $500 get you alive. Anyways. All right, you ready, guys, to go back in and do Explain It Like I'm 5?
Kind of, yeah.
Okay, that's good enough.
Don't make me go first.
I'm gonna have KBall go first
Nice.
because I don't know why.
Apparently,
You
I'm
said
the
don't.
cold start king.
Yeah, cold start king.
There we go.
All right, here we go. All right, we are here, and it is time for Explain It Like I'm 5.
Can you explain it like I'm 5?
KBall, what you got? Virtual DOM. That sounds complex. Can you explain
Virtual
it
DOM.
like I'm 5?
Yes. So this is something that I think was initially made famous by React and has been adopted by many, but not all, advanced JavaScript frameworks. And to explain it like like I'm explaining to a 5-year-old, I'm going to go into the physical world. So imagine that you have a room with furniture in it, like a bunch of couches and tables and chairs, and you want to move it around, right? And you want to reorganize things. Now, one way you could approach this is you could say, okay, I want to do this in order. So I'm going to move that chair over across the room. And in order to do that, actually, I need to move this couch out of the way, and then I'm going to move the chair, and then I'll put the couch back where it started, kind of moving things around. And then you say, okay, now that chair's where I want it to be. Let me move something else. Let me say, okay, this table, I want to move this table. So let me pick that table up, move it. Oh, where I want it to go has something else in it. I got to push that out of the way. And now I'll put the table there. And okay, now I'm going to, and so you're doing these changes one by one, and they're fairly expensive. Like, you got to move a bunch of stuff around to move things. Like, that is changing things in the DOM, right? I have a web page. I'm moving stuff around. Anytime I touch something in the DOM itself, it's pretty expensive. It's, you know, it takes a bunch of time. Maybe I got to move other things around, reflow the browser, all that sort of thing. Now, in iPhysical world, I could do this faster by saying, okay, let me first actually make a little model of my room. I'm going to have a toy version of the room, or I'm going to have papers, or maybe I'm advanced and I have a computer model of my room. I'm going to move around all the different pieces. I'm going to say, okay, I'm going to move the chair there and the couch there and the chair there. Okay, now I've got every change that I want to make. And I look at that and I say, okay, what's the smallest possible difference from my room as it is? What's the smallest change I can make? Okay, I still need to move this couch out of the way, but I know where it's going, so I'll move that first, put it where it's going, move the chair over, move the table, do all the moves at once so I can minimize the amount of work I'm actually doing and speed it up a lot. That little model that I did, that is the virtual DOM. So what React or one of these other frameworks will do is it'll pull together a set of changes that you want to make to the DOM, and it'll say, okay, we're going to rearrange things. We're going to put this title there. We're changing the text here. We're moving this around. Let's gather up all those changes, analyze to say, okay, what's the smallest possible difference that we can make to make those changes true, and then do that change all at once so that all of our like shared work of moving things out of the way or reflowing or whatever it happens to be happens exactly once. So the virtual DOM is a representation of the DOM as a model in JavaScript that lets you do all that manipulation the cheap and easy way and figure out what's the smallest possible change I need to do in the real expensive physical world, in this case the DOM, and do that all at once. There you have the virtual DOM as if you're 5.
Pretty good, KBall. Pretty good. I'm starting to feel like mine's going to be terrible.
Yeah, I'm feeling really bad about mine after that.
This is why we should have saved KBall for last. All right. Pass it over to Chris, who said, please don't make him go first. So I'm making him go second. Chris, you're going to explain variable hoisting, right?
Yeah, so I'm trying to explain like hoisting in JavaScript. So
Hoisting.
it's kind of like, so you, oh my God. Come back to me. Come back to me.
I love this game. Come back to you? All right. We're going to come back to Chris. We're going to go to Amelia.
All right. I'm going to explain the CSS Cascade as if I were 5. I mean, as if...
Oh, that's a whole other different angle of the game. Explain it as if you were the one who's 5.
It's going to be some combination. I think we're both 5 in this scenario.
Okay.
All right. So, what's a game that kids play? Let's say it's like playing Thumb War, where I want something to be a certain way and you want something to look a certain way. Let's say we want our toy to be orange or green. All right, so there's 4 stages to this Thumb War, and if anybody wins any of the stages, then they win and the toy is whatever color they want it to be. So the first stage of our Thumb War is basically looking at importance. This is where the metaphor is going to break down.
My thumb is more important
than your thumb.
Exactly.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So let's keep going with that. So there's 4 levels of how important your thumb is. The first is your thumb is in an active transition. So if one of our thumbs is in an active transition, then we're on the first tier of this tier. The second level is if one of our thumbs uses bang important. The third level is if it's in an active animation, and the fourth is everything else. So in this tier, each thumb has a level, 1, 2, 3, or 4, and the smaller the number wins. So most likely both of our thumbs are in the normal category, and so ding, 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 we ran out of time. No one wins this round of the Thumb War. All right, so the second tier of the Thumb War is origin, so where your thumb came from. All right, there's 3 levels to this. There's whether your thumb came from the website, so is it website styles, which is usually what you're dealing with as a web developer. And then the second one is user-defined styles. So maybe you painted your thumb. And the third level is
Like
browser-defined styles. So whether a browser painted your thumb.
Like somebody else painted it. before
That's
you got
like,
there.
when I paint my nails versus my kids paint my nails.
There you go.
Yeah. Yeah. So you would be a browser. Exactly. So if this metaphor is making it more confusing, isn't it? So if it's on a website versus a user-defined style, then the website styles win. If it's going up against the browser default styles, like there's a default button style, then that gets overridden really easily. You can really basically just write any styles for your website. All right, tier 2 is over. We're both website defined styles. Nobody wins. Tier 3, this is the one that, this is the longest one, and this is the one you're usually dealing with when you're writing styles for a website. The first level is inline styles. So I cannot relate this to a thumb, but basically you have a style attribute on an element. You say color red. That's the first level. The second level is whether it's based on ID. So this is like a CSS rule that's targeting a selector that has an ID in it. The third level is classes, attributes, or pseudo classes. So CSS rules that target any of those. And the fourth rule is a type or pseudo element. So inline styles always win. And then for the rest of them, you kind of have to add up how many like IDs, which are level 2, classes, attributes, or pseudo classes, which are level 3, and types or pseudo elements, which are level 4. And whichever number is largest or smallest, that style wins. All right, we're almost over. So let's say there's a tie on that one, which there very rarely is. So say there's 2 inline styles. The last tier is position. So if one CSS style comes first and the other comes last, that later one will win. So that'll pretty much make sure there aren't any ties because you can't define things at the same time. And that is how thumb wars work in the web world.
I like it. I wonder if a
trying to
paper rock
imagine-
scissors metaphor would have also been able to beat.
Might have been
Because
better.
like this one always beats that one, for example. Go ahead, KBall.
Yeah.
Oh no, I was just trying to figure out inline styles. Is that like if I tattoo under my thumbnail or something?
Yeah, I don't know. You have to like inject it into your thumb, which not advisable.
Maybe it had to be like a henna tattoo because JavaScript can always come and change those. You know,
Oh,
nothing's
yeah.
permanent.
Yeah, and somehow the color of your thumb influences like if you capture the other player's thumb. I'm digging this.
I like it too.
Yeah, we gotta.
Oh,
flesh
whenever
this
I
out
do a
more.
thumb war, I always bring my separate hand in and just like put it over the top and declare victory. So maybe that's like
Oh, my kids do that 100%. So they like to have like both of them. So one gets one hand and they have both of their hands on that, and the other gets the other hand
Yeah.
and both of their hands
That's
on that.
smart.
there's your bang important
That's
right
important.
there.
Yeah, exactly.
exactly.
Yep.
All
Bang
right, Chris,
important. Hand
are
on
you
top.
ready or should we stall a whole nother round? Because I could go.
No. Let's do it. All right.
Okay, here we go.
So I'm gonna explain function hoisting, like you are 5. So say you are at the park and you see a playground. In your hand is a muffin. You have a muffin. And so you see the playground and you run over there and you want to climb up to the top. And you need both hands to climb up to the top because there's like a ladder. So you drop your muffin in the sawdust. Okay. And you climb all the way to the top. And it's awesome. And you are hungry now. And you want to eat your muffin, but it's in the sawdust. So function hoisting would allow you to eat your muffin even though you're on top of the play structure.
Nice.
It is the invisible sawdust fairy that picks the muffin up and raises it to the top.
Yes, sawdust fairy, muffin fairies. They will magically take them out of the the muffins out of the sawdust and put them in your mouth.
That sounds magical.
Yeah.
Sounds
Yeah,
kind of
now I
scary
want to
too.
use it. Yeah.
It's like all of a sudden there's a muffin in your mouth and you're like, what?
JavaScript.
Except the
The
muffin
language
fairy
of
is,
sawdust fairies.
yeah, the muffin fairy is actually your mom or dad, and they hide it from you, but they give you the muffin.
All right, that's less scary. Thank you for changing that for me. So I should say that all of these topics were submitted by people in the chat. So appreciate that.
Okay, but
We
wait,
picked-
did that make sense?
Yeah, man.
Does
Magical
that
sawdust.
make sense?
Muffin fairies. I was with it. KBall, you're saying no. You're against.
Did it
I mean,
or no?
Amelia's just staring off into the sky, thinking about it. She's like, "Does it? Does it make sense?"
I was trying to think, but then I kept listening.
Yeah.
I feel so. So your muffin is your function or variable, is that
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And you want to use it, but you're up at the top. And
And it was down
I
there in
guess
the
your
sawdust.
muffin started down in the sawdust because you defined it later.
Yeah, you
Your
defined it down there,
muffin's
but actually it
down
got
and-
hoisted up.
Yeah.
Sure. Okay. No, I
did-
I don't
I
have
did my
anything
best.
better.
It's like, come on, man.
I don't have
did my
anything
best.
better, and I love the muffin fairy. And I mean, we were talking about this a little bit earlier, right? Like the real truth is that like hoisting just doesn't actually make any sense. Like, why do you do that?
No, it's magical. Like I'm sitting here, I'm trying to think of, okay, how can I explain this in real world terms and things that actually make sense? And you can't because it's nonsense.
It's nonsense, exactly.
Muffin
So
fairy.
I think given the nonsense that is variable and function hoisting, your muffin fairy is an excellent explanation.
There
Yeah.
you go.
There.
It doesn't make any sense. Why is this muffin suddenly in my mouth? I don't know why it's here. I thought I put it down in the sawdust.
Which I think
I'm
I
happy.
think this is actually a great argument against hoisting. So
Exactly. You well elucidated why I don't like
100%.
hoisting.
You
It's like,
you have done it well, Chris. I withdraw my objection. Given the nonsense that is hoisting, your explanation is perfect.
yeah, on a more serious note, on the same note though, this is like the principle of least surprise, right? I mean, the thing should be defined where I define it. Don't magically move it somewhere else. That to me is a surprise, and I'm always surprised. I'm like, oh, I have to remember this random thing it does for me on my behalf. Thanks a lot, Mom and Dad. I don't even like muffins, so I put it in the sawdust. All right, now can we move on? Because I have Docker. And while Chris had to invent, just off the top of his head, an amazing metaphor for hoisting, Docker is a metaphor. So I'm just going to use that one. So, hey, kids, you know how computers programs are flaky and they always break and stuff, and that's annoying? Like it works on this machine, but not on that machine? Or it always crashes? Well, that's because computer programs are a lot like the way people ship produce around the world. So in the old days, if I had some bananas in Asia and some oranges in Africa and some pineapples also in Africa, these also grow other places, but that's just where they were. And I want to ship them to America to eat them here, you would have to have a different way of handling it for each kind of good. So bananas have their own rules. Pineapples, what's the other thing I said, also has its own rules. And so everybody along the way that shipped that to me so I could eat it here, they would have to handle it in a very specific way, and that's flaky, it can break. Until the invention of shipping containers. The cool thing about shipping containers is they're all the same exact size and the same dimensions, and they're stackable. And so you can take your shipping container, you can throw your bananas in it, you can throw your pineapples in it. I still can't remember the third piece of produce that I named, so you throw that one in there. And now every single boat, every single train, the forklifts, everything along the way doesn't have to care what kind of thing it is. They just move the containers from where they started to where you want them. And you can just eat those bananas and those apples and that third mystery fruit.
It's oranges.
That's, what would I say?
Oranges.
Oranges, thank you.
For some reason, they're coming from overseas instead of Florida.
I didn't think about this very long. And that's what Docker is for computers, right? You just package up all the details of that particular thing that you want to ship somewhere else and run, and you put it into this Docker container, and nobody has to care how the insides work. They just run it over there. It's all self-contained, like a shipping container. It's almost like you have a Docker shipping container metaphor that's just waiting to be used. There we go. How'd I do?
That's great. I was just thinking about how much money I would pay for a kid's book with all of these things in it.
Oh, that would be kind of cool because we've done these throughout the years. We could actually gather up a bunch of them
That would be so good.
and then pay someone to draw it.
I was gonna say, what about an animated short, right? Like, I think Nick's story from
Oh yeah,
whenever that was would just be priceless.
yeah. Nick went on like a 15-minute tale. What was he explaining that one day?
He was React hooks.
React
he-
hooks,
and
and
he
he used
walked-
Moana
He used Moana and Coco.
and
and,
Coco,
like-
Nice.
and he merged the movies.
Yeah, the merge was a little stretched. I felt like there was like a lot of good Moana stuff, and then the Coco reference was a little bit like, okay.
Yeah. He was grasping at straws, but he still got the episode named after him. I think it's called Monad's Hook.
Yes.
So
That's
go
good.
look that one up. And
I
listen to that one.
regularly reference that to folks who are like, what's a good episode? And I'm like, well, if you want to laugh, like, go listen to Nick in this episode.
Yeah, totally. Or the tailwind beneath my wings, which is to this day my most proud moment on JS Party when we
That one was
managed
delightful as well.
to work in all the lyrics to Wind Beneath My Wings into a conversation about Tailwind, and only had the grace to tell Adam Wathan and Faraz about it midway through the show, and then managed to put it all together and land it with our own cover of the song to open up the show. So definitely also, if you want to laugh and just be super impressed by our musical talents, go listen to that episode as well.
Nick Nisi once again like carried that episode. He did
Absolutely.
incredible.
Yeah, because I was going to bail on the idea because it was getting so awkward, and Nick just stuck to it. I'm like, this is happening. We're doing it all the way through. So, all right, this has been Explain It Like I'm Five. We'll be right back for I'm excited about X, where X is literally anything. All right, drop a marker there. Does anybody need to step off? I know we're going a little bit long, but this will be a short segment. Step away for a minute. The Tale of Monad. Well, Nick, you can judge. Anybody in the chat can now judge our Eli 5s. You can rank them best to worst. You can rank them best to best. You can come up with better metaphors. You can do whatever you want. It's just a chat room. You can just type whatever you want into that field. Okay. We don't have a theme song for this, so I'll just kind of introduce it and kick it off.
So we need to have Matt Ryer come on for a theme song.
I know, he was hanging out
Matt
in the chat
Ryer, Matt
earlier.
Ryer, Matt
You
Ryer.
said his name 3 times. He hung out. He showed up in the JS Party channel for a couple of quick hits, then he left again. So, Chris, you got anything you're excited about? Doesn't have to be.
This is hard for
Me either.
me.
I know. This is like against. This is against your personality.
Man,
Go ahead.
my 6-year-old has got me into Taylor Swift recently. I was never a T Swift fan, and then my 6-year-old is like mad about T Swift. And there's a song that is "This Is Me Trying," and I just saw like you were like, ah, and I'm like, yeah, this is Chris trying.
This is
him
me
trying.
trying.
He's kind of work up the gusto to be excited about something.
So, like, I always get, all right, you know Legos? I like Legos.
Yeah.
So I'm going to talk about Legos. They got this Lego Ideas. And if you don't know what that is, it's this, like, it's kind of like a contest. And you make something with a Lego, you upload it to the site. And then people come and they vote on it. And if you get like 10,000 votes on your thing that you made, you the Lego team will and their designer, like, I don't know, make sure that they like can get the rights to whatever you've made, if it's like a licensed thing, but they'll work with you to actually make it a real Lego set, and they'll release it. There've been a whole bunch of these over the years. Like, I don't know, there was like a Tron one. There's like some like a fishing hut, like a fishing cabin, like a great big fishing thing. Lots of other ideas, some birds and things like that. Just random stuff. And I always get kind of excited when I see that another thing has made it to 10,000, because the ones that get that many votes are always really awesome. And I'm like, wow, I can't wait to not like justify spending $300 on that when it comes out, but like they're cool. So many cool things people make, and you know, I don't know. I'm just really impressed, and that's what I'm excited about. I guess.
How cool would it be to have your thing
Yeah.
made into an actual Lego set? That would be
Yeah.
just amazingly cool.
That's
Yeah.
super cool, and it's such a great example of a company that is not just listening to their customers, but is like really engaging with them and being like, okay, like Lego super fans, let's make stuff together.
Yeah. And all these, you know, the people that are submitting these things, you know, these aren't kids, right? They're like they're adults with lives, and
Yeah.
and like they enjoy Lego, which makes me not feel so stupid and nerdy. But you know, it's people like me, like maybe not like me because I suck at doing that sort of thing, but they build these things out of this toy and they get real Lego sets. And then when the set comes out, there's always like a really fancy booklet about, and it talks about the designer, and so that must be a real, you know, for people, yeah. But yeah, that's
Have
neat.
you watched the Lego Masters game show on TV? Wherever
I
it is?
like tried to watch the first episode, but I don't really like things like that.
The stuff they built is absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
But if you don't like things and stuff, it's
I
just-
don't.
It is.
I'll pass.
It is one of those.
I don't have kids as an excuse to have Legos, although you definitely don't need that excuse. But I got to play with them recently because GitHub had swag for our like internal conference of like you put together a little Mona Octocat and you get this whole kit, and it was so much fun. I'm gonna break it apart and do it again. I had that much fun.
I've never been the break it
Legos.
apart and do it again kind of person. I would just do it once, put it on the shelf, and stare at it.
I might also do that. It was a lot of work.
It's cool because like you're building a thing and you get this feeling of accomplishment, even though what you have done really isn't that hard. But it looks cool and you did it. Yeah, it's neat.
But it does prove you can follow directions.
True.
I actually failed that part. I didn't follow the directions, and mine turned out weird, but it doesn't always prove that.
Did you also color outside of the lines? And
I definitely did.
yeah.
We do a lot of Legos in our house, and anytime you have something like that, or like you can't find the right color block or whatever, so you fill it in, we just call it that's being creative. You got to be creative with your Legos.
I hate that because I'm a perfectionist completionist, so I'll look forever for that color. I'm like hours. I gotta find a black flat 2x1, and if I don't find it, I'm not gonna finish the piece.
Yeah, that's what we're trying to cut off at the pass with my kids.
No, that's smart. I'm not saying my way is good. I just
Yeah.
can't stand having that one weird colored thing.
I'm like you, Jerod, and it basically it creates like paralysis where you can't like finish the thing until you find the right piece. You know,
Yeah.
the black 2x1 tile.
Just reimagine it. You're practicing being creative.
Just not.
I
an
don't want to be
Imagineer.
creative. I want to follow directions and make the thing.
Right. I want to look awesome.
Yeah. Yeah.
Different personalities. Hilarious.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on. Amelia, what are you excited about?
I have two things. The first one is just a concept, WebRTC. I was playing with it recently. It's super cool. I had never played with it. Multiplayer web things are very easy when you're using it.
Have you
That's
hung
all
out
I
with
have there.
Faraz?
I haven't actually.
Oh,
But I
yeah, I
want
get you
to.
too. Gotta cross those streams because he's a WebRTC fiend.
Yeah, it's super cool. It just like connects your browser to other people using the same connection. I don't know what they're called, but it's like really hard until it clicks, and then it's really easy to do things that I am very impressed by. And the other thing I'm really excited about right now is generative art, which there's a lot of opinions here, but I feel like as developers, we want to be creative with our code, unless maybe we're being perfectionists about what we want to create. It's like Legos in the browser where
Yes.
you can use like random as part of what creates the art or some other input that you don't totally have control over. So you're kind of like working with a computer to make something cool, and you don't have to do it all yourself. And you can use these skills that you use every day to make things that please you visually. So it's been something I've been really enjoying recently.
Very cool. So I like the conversation around generative art, especially when you get like into the full deep learning generated art and like authorship and intellectual property and these things, because it gets very gray in terms of who actually created what, and do we assign authorship to GPUs, etc. KBall, what are you excited about?
I am excited about a virtual conference that happened recently that I did not attend, but they have posted all their videos online, and I've been going through them, which is Lead Dev did a focused on Staff Plus, so like senior IC engineers, that has a bunch of really cool stuff in it. And I find it, I'm really happy to see people publishing content that is focused on senior folks that are still in very technical roles, and not just assuming that as you get senior, you become a manager and only providing engineering manager content. So yeah, go check that out. It's free. You create a free account and you can access all of it. And we will, I'm sure, have a link in the show notes.
Absolutely. Very cool. Well, last but not least, I'm excited because we are getting close to episode number 200. And we'd love to do something special since it's a nice round number. We don't have any ideas as of yet, so we are soliciting ideas from listeners in the JS Party channel. We'll, of course, be thinking as well about something we can do to celebrate a little bit our 200th episode, which is 5 recordings away. What I'm not so excited about is that our rival podcast, Go Time, those ghouls over there at Go Time, are hitting 200 this week. And they have stolen our front-end feud format. They're calling it Gophers Say. And they're recording that one live. So if you love front-end feud and you don't mind, you can stomach a little bit of people talking about Golang and stuff, then I guess you could listen to that, because it'll probably be a lot like front-end feud, but just a poor impression. So I can't exactly recommend it, but I'm not going to stop you from going to gotime.fm/200 and listening to that episode. And then come right back to us and help us figure out an even better thing to do for our 200th episode coming right up.
Hey, there's a Golang WebAssembly compilation and runtime, right? So like you could imagine that they're talking about that, and it's for the web, and therefore they, if they knew what they were doing, would be talking about it on JS Party. But since they don't, they can do it on their own episode.
I like that. This is kind of like Go Time web dev fanfic. Like you're just listening, but you're tricking yourself into a whole other storyline where they're actually web people. Oh, this might work. If you can pull that off, you should come on JS Party for our next Explain It Like I'm 5, because you have a great imagination and you can probably explain things much better than I can, like I'm 5. Well, that's our show for today. Thanks for hanging out. Hopefully you learned something. Hopefully you laughed a little, or at least rolled your eyes a lot. KBall, Amelia, and Chris, thanks for partying with me today. That's JS Party for this week. We'll talk to y'all next time. I clicked the outro button, but it didn't play the music. So I just about stuck the landing there, but the music didn't play. So hey, show's over now.
I can like dance gets there. Pretend. Yeah. It's harder to dance when there's not actually music.
This is
really
true.
Hard.
Requires acting. Why did that not work? Well, at least it worked for our jingles.
Do you add it in post, or do you?
Yeah, we'll put it in post. But I actually have one for the live show that would just is like a shorter version. So it just is a nice way of actually putting a period at the end without us doing what we're doing right now. But
it'll never end now.
Yeah, exactly. We're just gonna keep talking. So in Riverside, there's like a tab bar component on the right-hand side for the host. I'm not sure if you guys see it as well, where there's 3 tabs: Studio, Media, and Chat. And what happens, I think, I'm troubleshooting now. I think when you switch between tabs, they like lose their event listeners. And so like the clicks don't work anymore in this tab. So I went over to Studio to check how long it had been, and then back to the Media tab, and the sounds don't work anymore. It's just a front-end bug.
If you click around a couple times, it still doesn't work.
I'm trying.
I don't have the Media tab, but
yeah, you can select different songs in the thing, but none of them actually trigger the file to play. So yeah, it's just some sort of broken JavaScript code, which I think is apropos for our show, but still annoying. Note to self, do not switch tabs in the middle of the show or you lose your soundboard. All right. Well, I guess this is the end of the show then. You guys have anything else you want to talk about before we say goodbye?
No.
Can we talk about how funny Chris is?
Oh gosh.
Just like, Chris, you're amazing.
The
You have
straight
such
face.
I don't like
just like
kids, so-
straight face, dry delivery.
Yeah,
I love
Chris,
it.
you are definitely have the most entries in our soundboard of all JS Party panelists.
Well, I'm glad I'm good for something.
You're good for more than just that, but you're also good for that, which is spectacular. All right, let's say goodbye to the live listeners. See y'all later. Thanks for hanging out. Hanging out again, same time, same station, next Thursday, where Nick will be talking Nest.js with people of Nest.js. I'm not sure who the guests are because they're not in our admin, but I'm sure it's going to be awesome. And maybe some of these other lovely people will be there. I don't know. I'm not sure what's happening, but